Hello everybody, welcome to That's Football. Arsenal win 3-1 in the North London derby. I can see a couple of old blokes dancing. Oh my God, what does football do to us? But fair play to them. And look, I could talk about the red card, but I spent a lot of time talking about that. And I feel that we're talking about a match reaction here. And the reality is that the red card didn't stop Arsenal winning the game. The red card stopped the game being enjoyable. And I believe in a derby that probably shouldn't have been a red card. Well, I don't think it should have been a red, but I'm not getting into that because it just generates a conversation that takes away from what we actually saw today. And we saw an Arsenal side that is a contender. We've spent a lot of time talking about Arsenal on this channel and whether they can win the league. And I firmly think they can't. And I don't think any Arsenal fan thinks they can. But that wasn't their expectation at the start of the season. That was to be in the top four. Their first 11 can give anybody a game. They're a good side. They are where they deserve to be. They're consistent. They're winning games. They're playing good football. And Arteta's revolution at Arsenal, which I and many other people could see, is blossoming. And I think when he sorts his bench out, that's when they can start talking about the title. Because I think ultimately, if they lose a Saka or a Saliba or a Jesus or an Odegaard, I think that team will become weaker and more vulnerable. But at the moment, they're confident, they're playing really good football. And I think that was the difference today. You look at it from minute one, really. Arsenal's intent was to attack and score goals. And Spurs' intent was to be park the bus and hit on the brake. And there was an energy to Spurs, an energy to Arsenal that wasn't there for Spurs. I think all of Spurs' downfall comes from their own lack of conviction, really. The second goal, Lloris should be palming that away, not towards his centre-back in the 6-yard box. The first goal, Højbjerg and Bentancur should be closing Partey down with energy, and they don't. That's 2 goals. The third goal was obviously, penalty. The red cards happened. And the red card itself, I mean, I've got to shout this out. I don't know how long Conte will survive at Spurs. Very good manager, but it's very difficult. I think Spurs and Arsenal are always intertwined. And over the last few years, they're almost competing for the same thing. Last year it was 4th place, Spurs got it. This year, it's more than 4th place. It's can you be a title contender? And on today's evidence, Arsenal can and Spurs can't because you're not going to contend for the title by going to grounds and trying to hit on the brake. The intent is not there. The intent from Spurs today was to not get beat. It wasn't to win. That they didn't show enough adventure. It's so defensive. They're basically playing with a back 5 and 2 holding midfielders. Conte is on a different level to Southgate, but it's the same approach. They've got better players than that. And I also question why Conte's got Jed Spence and he's playing Emerson Royale. I don't watch Spurs every week, but every time I watch this Emerson Royale, he's a problem. He is a problem. Positionally, he doesn't know what he's doing. His passing's not up to it. And defensively, he's a bloody joke. And then he gets himself sent off today. Now, I don't think it was a red. I think he's tried to trip Martinelli and it's going to be a yellow. He's caught him with his studs. Martinelli's been very clever and stayed down. And Anthony Taylor, being Anthony Taylor, doesn't think this is a derby and I'm about to ruin the game with a red card that could have been a yellow. And he's sent off. Emerson Royale has given Anthony Taylor the opportunity to do that. And ultimately, Spurs fans can be disappointed with the red card. But ultimately, I'd be more disappointed with why you're picking a very bad right back who's ultimately cost you the game with the red card as well. He's dreadful. He's absolutely dreadful. But so is the approach. I think Bissouma is one of the best midfielders in the Premier League last year. He's energetic. He's good on the ball. And he's sat on your bench. Spurs are too pragmatic this year. Where's that free-flowing goals that they had from Son, Kulusevski and Kane last year? It's disappeared. And I think Spurs fans will get to a point where they're like, Arsenal are our biggest rival and they are playing fantastic football at the top of the league and they're entertaining and we are playing counter-attacking football and we're behind them. It won't wash for long. And I don't know. Look, no manager can stay forever. And I think in the summer, Conte and Spurs had a really good summer. But I think they've also almost taken a step backwards. They had no Kulusevski today. And I thought we saw the limitations of Richarlison. He's greedy. He's a greedy player. He could have fed people in the first half and Spurs would have scored. He holds on to the ball for too long. I know he won the penalty and I know he scores goals, but he's a very selfish player. And Kulusevski's not. And I think their best front three is still Son, Kane and Kulusevski. Obviously, Kulusevski was injured today. There's not a lot you can do about that. But ultimately the right team won the game. Arsenal deserved to win the game. I think next week they roll on to Liverpool at the Emirates. They've got a good chance of getting a result there. And if they do that, I think that next week is massive for Arsenal, by the way. If they can beat Liverpool, then they basically put themselves up there as title contenders for me, because we're starting to approach... we're getting deeper into the season and they've beaten significant teams. But for now, I think Arsenal are a very closed book. They're very easy to go. That's what Arsenal is. The Arteta revolution has been built over a number of years. He's cleaned the squad of players that don't suit the way he wants to play or the personality he wants. He's built a first team that can compete with anybody. His next step will be to build a squad, but that's about investment, which I'm sure will be there. And I don't think Arsenal... I think there's a sustainability and credibility to Arsenal that means that they're not going to fall off. I think people think with Arsenal that they're going to fall off. They're going to have a couple of bad results and be the old Arsenal. I don't think that they are. I think there is a consistency there. There is a chemistry there. There is a style of play there. And there is a plan there. And I always said this about Arteta. There was these Arsenal fans sort of going, Arteta out and all this. And I'm like, you know what? He spent most of his managerial career as an assistant to Pep Guardiola. There is absolutely no way he's not going to try and build a team that plays a certain way. And he's now doing that. And I don't think Arsenal are going anywhere. I think Arsenal are here to stay unless they get... I think they need to reinvest in January to give them the momentum, because they will get tired. And I think they need to get to January, which means they need to get over the next few weeks without any major injuries to people like Jesus and Saliba and Xhaka and people like that. And if they do that, I think they'll be in a very good position in January to bring a couple of players in, add to the squad, and make sure that they maintain not a top 4 spot, but a challenge to the top 2. And I think that's where Arsenal are at the moment. You can't say more than the fact that Arsenal are playing well, they're being coached well, they've got good players, they've got good momentum, and they're in a very good place. And they are doing really, really well. Contrast that with Spurs, and look, there were some contentious moments in that game. Of course there were. I don't rate Anthony Taylor as a referee. I think he's a bad referee. But ultimately, I think the right team won the game. And I think Spurs were masters of their own downfall for 2 reasons. 1, they made too many mistakes. 2, they played too defensive. And I think when you go into a game and play like that, you're going to leave yourself open. And that's exactly what happened. So fair play to Arsenal. Really looking forward to their game against Liverpool next week. Spurs, they're just going to have to get their heads down and grind again. But I think even if Spurs go and win a few games and get themselves back into the top 4 race, or better than that, they're still going to come up against Man City, Arsenal, Liverpool, and play counter-attacking football. Spurs remind me a bit of West Ham at the moment. They're more than capable of grinding out the results against most of the league, but when they come up against the big teams, let's sit back and counter. And to be fair, Spurs have been sitting back and countering at Forest and places like that this year. So I think Spurs and Conte are fine, but I think there will become a bit of frustration from that fan base at some point on how negatively they are playing at the moment. Anyway, well done to Arsenal. Make sure you get your comments in below. What were your thoughts? Smash a like on the video and make sure you subscribe. Thanks for watching.